Podcast starts now. Wow, 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 wow. The way that we are not only a bi-coastal podcast now, we are actually tri-coastal.
Tri-coastal, international, global.
We've gone global 100%.
Yeah, the song International Smile by Katy Perry is applicable here, I would say.
It's never been more applicable in our lives, which is saying something because both of us have traveled before.
That's right. Multiple times even. You know, speaking of songs that exist, today's a huge day, Sam. Do you want to say why?
Are you really deciding right now to hop into the Taylor Swift discourse?
Well, you know, we've always been we were the pioneers in starting a movement of being neutral about Taylor Swift. Mm-hmm. And I think for a while, I think I was satisfied being like, it is the biggest political statement you can make is never address when her music comes out, never address anything about her, never, you know, and I think silence sometimes is actually more politically impactful than using your voice. And that's something they won't tell you at various, you know, Ivy League universities across this great nation. Yeah. But I think that somehow today I did feel compelled to speak.
So you're speaking out. You're speaking now, as Taylor Swift would say.
That's right. So here's my thing. I'm trying to find the right words with which to say this. So much of this podcast and so much of like our rapport and our sense of humor is like taking things that are meaningless and silly and vapid and like weaving theories around them and being like, this is why quarter zips are straight and button ups are gay. Like we love talking about things that don't matter. We love something silly, something stupid, something lowbrow even. And so I would never purport to be some sort of pretentious elitist or something like that. Here's what I'm running into a wall with Taylor Swift. I can't even muster up the energy to do that with her.
Like you can't even be playful with it.
I don't know how to even interact with it in a distanced, ironic way. It's like staring into a black hole.
I'm finding myself crippled with silence in like a non-activism way. I feel like feel like I have to be silent in it's impossible to like your words. I feel like, you know how when a famous person does our podcast, sometimes they'll take something random and be like, and it'll make a headline like blank says blank. And you're like, well, you made news out of a comedy podcast? This makes no sense. And I feel like any conversation, a private conversation I will have about Taylor Swift could be taken out of context and made news because everyone is just looking for like, who hates her, who loves her, what's the deal? And I'm like, everyone stop it. I mean, this is the neutrality issue again, but I feel like you can't remain on a day like today. I feel like all I can do is like run into the woods and hide.
Yeah. That's very folklore of you, I imagine. I have not listened to the album.
I mean, again, I'm so happy for all of her fans. They are
Me too.
The most well-fed fans in all of pop music. And that is really amazing. You know, as someone who stands Gaga, of course, I'm alive, but barely. Yeah. I get a morsel here and there. But
you're emaciated.
And I tell myself... I'm emaciated. I'm ready to walk the runways of Milan based on how emaciated I am, for crying out loud.
Right. My friend was saying that they are like, you know that Kamala thing? Sorry, we can't be talking about online stuff, but you know that Kamala video where she's like...
My favorite video of all time.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
You didn't fall out of a coconut tree. You live in the context of everything around you or whatever. My friend was like, you know, Taylor Swift fans are really the most fell out of a coconut tree fan base around. And I do think that there's something sort of beautiful about that and sort of pure. Like they seem to exist in this childlike state where no music or art has come before or after Taylor Swift. And I was thinking like in the same way that you and I wake up every morning, read the news, maybe we read some culture news or political news, or maybe we catch up on what's going on in the arts, and then we have some opinions about it. I think these people only read, they have an app that only shows them what Taylor Swift is doing. And then that's like what the topic of conversation is that day.
I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. like even this, I'm like, it's so easy to be like, all Taylor Swift fans are completely ignorant of past, present, and future.
Sure.
But then it's like, but that's not true. Like there's something even deeper. There's something even more nefarious going on because they do know what's going on. Like some of these people are smart. Some of them like, and it's like, what the hell is happening here? And I don't know. And there's a way, you know, when like, I almost wish like to be left out of this feeling. It doesn't give me the feeling of eliteness that I would prefer it to give me. It actually just gives me a feeling of lost. I feel like it's almost like, am I missing out on a human experience? Is liking Taylor Swift a human experience that I am incapable of experiencing? And I don't know.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's sort of like when an election is happening and you see people earnestly like feel truly like a strong connection to Joe Biden or something. You know, I mean, I guess there are no debates this year because who needs them? But, you know, in a normal election year, you know, there's debates. And it's like seeing someone who is earnestly like, our guy's going to win. You know, I just really like team blue. And they're like against team red. And they're so excited about it in a real earnest way. And they're so like, oh, that's going to make a difference. And you're like, God, if only I could occupy that sort of spirit, I would be so much happier on a day-to-day basis.
I'd be so much happier. I know that like, I don't do like a lot of work to try to educate myself. If I'm being
about what?
Like for all intents and purposes, I should be someone who likes Taylor Swift. I should be someone that is team blue over team red. I like, you know, I've been on the last 60 pages of a book that everyone read 7 years ago for 6 months. I should be like this person. And like, I'm not trying to open my eyes. I'm like trying to shut them. And yet I see through it.
I see what you're saying. You're saying it's not even like you are some urbanite sophisticate that is always shitting on things that are popular and does not believe in popular art and only goes to the opera. You're saying you want so badly to participate in it, and you are in fact actively trying to read less.
Yeah. Yes. This is like being gay all over again, where it's like, this shouldn't be me.
Yeah.
I'm just a boy from the Midwest.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. It being gay was forced upon you against your will, and now being sort of smart has been forced upon you against your will, despite all your efforts. You're like, stop it. You're banging your head against the wall repeatedly. You're trying to say, stop having critical thoughts, but it's impossible.
It's impossible. That's literally it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I think would help us with this discussion?
Bring in our guest?
Bringing in a cultural critic to give her take.
I'll say, George, do the honors.
Oh my God, we are so excited to welcome to the pod. I have to say, we are a little late to this. I'm like, the book came out like over a month ago, but we are so excited to have author of No Judgment and also Fake Accounts, which is a novel I loved, Lauren Oyler on the podcast. Hello, Lauren, and welcome.
Hi. I have a thought, actually. I thank you for bringing me in because I was raring to go. I was like, I have some analysis.
Yeah. Well, you know, Lauren, as someone who sort of has made a career out of tearing down powerful women, I would love to hear your opinion on one Miss Taylor Swift.
Well, I think Sam's issue, your feeling of alienation about not understanding what it's like to like Taylor Swift, they don't understand what it's like to not care about Taylor Swift, right? And that's also a rich, beautiful experience that you're having, an aesthetic experience even, where, you know, you're making an effort, you're listening to it. It doesn't mean anything to you. That's also an experience that you're having. And I think that that's very valid. And you shouldn't be ashamed of it. You shouldn't say anything bad about Taylor Swift because my understanding is they will get you. But besides that, I think that that's totally fine. But do you think that she in some way produces the experience of believing that she is like she fell out of a coconut? You all fell out of a coconut tree. This is all like the present moment. There's no predecessor and there's no future as well, right? Like that's part of the appeal. But it's not like hedonistic enjoyment. It's just kind of high school emotional drama, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is that I think in order to really fully buy into the narrative, you just have to... I mean, she is in this constant state of like high school big feelings, which I think there's something sort of beautiful about. I mean, I don't know, it's much less interesting to release an album that's about like, well, I woke up and I was sort of hungover and then I read half an article and then went on a walk. Like, yes, it is obviously like much more interesting to be constantly falling in love and constantly having your heart broken. But then you also are stuck in this place where all these things feel like they're happening for the first time.
Yeah, and also that they're never going to end, right? Like there's no future and there's no past. But I think people, I don't know, people sort of want to live in that place. And indeed, actually, I do think that they do. I do think that there are some people who are unbothered by the philosophical issues of existence, and they're just kind of like bopping around. And so the worst, the worst thing that happens to them, and it's actually I sound terrible, but it's not like the worst kind of person to be like, I was in love with this guy and he ditched me for someone more beautiful. It's not, it does suck. Like, it's a really sort of moving experience. And if you have no, like, context, right? The context of what
it's even more moving.
Yeah, it's even more moving. But what's amazing is that people don't sort of have any epiphanies after that, right? Like, they just keep doing the same thing over and over. Like, it doesn't make them stronger.
Mm-hmm. There's no connecting of the dots. There are just dots constantly.
There's no Kelly Clarkson.
There's no Kelly Clarkson. That's Kelly Clarkson, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's none of that.
Yes, exactly.
There's no Kelly Clarkson. American Idol never happened.
I feel this way. I also sometimes feel this way about comedians when comedians like keep finding themselves in fucked up situations and like storytelling about the fucked up situation that they got themselves into. I'm sort of like, well, when are you going to learn to not get into fucked up situations? Like, at some point you're seeking out fucked up situations and being dishonest with either me, your audience, or you yourself. And I can't tell who you're being dishonest to, but there is a dishonesty going on here.
I mean, if there's someone who fell out of a coconut tree, it's stand-up comedians.
But you guys are comedians. But what would happen if you stopped getting into I guess you comment on external stimuli, right? So you don't need to get in a fucked up situation. But I recently sort of developed an appreciation for, let's say, lived experience. And I'm like, yeah, a little bit of a fucked up situation is okay. And as long as I conduct myself, as long as I win the fucked up situation, like, I'll go, I'm interested in that.
Do you feel comfortable telling us what the fucked up situation was that you're referring to?
It's just getting into scrapes, romantic scrapes, personal scrapes, drama. I think this relates to what we're going to talk about later, so I don't want to give too much away.
Okay.
But
We won't get into it now.
It's like love life, social life, like.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, look, I'm not above getting myself into a fucked up situation, but I think I am sort of, I don't like when it feels forced. I say, let it happen naturally. You can find, even the most normal situation has interesting elements if you let it. It's sort of my take on it, but maybe that's not true. Maybe I should join a cult for a year and then I'll have a big comedy book.
What? We're not talking about cults. We're not talking about cults. We're just talking about guys you're going out with that you
sure.
You know it's going to end badly. Like, that's like, there's a dispiriting like idea that you should avoid the red flags and you should be actualizing and you should live your life in a particular way. And you shouldn't. I don't seek out things, but if they come to you and then you accept them, that's sort of different.
Well, yeah, and it's also like, what are you going to do? Not ever seek out big feelings and always be completely like down the line and neutral and never have any big. I mean, you're not even going to get close to the epiphanies if you don't at least attempt some things.
And then you're going to get older and you're going to have many regrets.
Yes, that's very true.
You're going to be reflecting constantly on all of the things you could have done and all the loves you lost. And what if you had just gone? What if you had just gone to the bar, like when you had said
Okay,
what if you just had?
Yeah, it's true.
You're literally convincing me to be Taylor Swift coded.
I'm literally all in on Taylor Swift now. I'm not even kidding. There is something.
This is not about Taylor Swift. This is
no, I know.
No, it's all about Taylor Swift.
I wonder if, you know what, I think it is also about Taylor Swift. And I have to be honest with myself and call myself in, because I feel like there's almost something, Taylor Swift is unable to have any sort of ironic distance and is unable to have like a sense of humor about herself, really. And I think my distaste for it comes down to that. But maybe that is on me because I don't have the courage to like enter this fully earnest milieu. And it's like, that's because of I have some sort of like insurmountable I don't know, shame or self-awareness or something.
But do you think that she had, it's not ironic, but certainly you have to have distance if you're sort of cultivating a public image, right? Everybody has a persona. She surely has, her persona is that. It's just like we find it sort of annoying and boring.
I guess that's true.
But maybe she's not annoying and boring. She could just be really good at doing that. Mm-hmm. But usually my feeling about celebrities, like really truly famous people, is that they're all like quite with it, if not intelligent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I do think especially these days, it is so genuinely difficult and traumatizing to have any level of fame that if you are getting through that on a day-to-day basis, you must have a good head on your shoulders in some capacity.
Or your good head is like war. I'm sure she's crazy in some way, because of that, but she can handle it, right? The ability to handle it doesn't necessarily indicate a good head.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But
I mean,
also
maybe
she's abnormal, but that doesn't mean that she's a psycho.
Sure.
Okay, I have two. What would happen if you did hang out with Taylor Swift and you were like, oh my God, she's actually incredible. I'm such an asshole. How would that feel?
It would be great because then I would get to go sit in the box of whatever fucking sports thing she's going to for some reason, like dance around with Cara Delevingne and whatever. That's
my childhood dream.
Get some free clothes. I think we're probably similar sizes because she's also a tall woman. So I think that would be
true.
Great. If I genuinely liked her.
Yeah. I don't think it is beyond the realm of possibility that Taylor, all these people have sort of a team that picks what books they are photographed with and what tastes they have and whatever. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility for them to decide, we want Lauren Oyler to be part of Taylor's squad for the next album cycle. She's sort of like going in a more bookish direction. I think I do agree with you that I have never met you in person, but I know you're saying you're tall. I know Taylor's like you guys would probably look good together in a photograph, like the two of you hanging out. It would be sort of like laughing. Yeah, like you with Blake Lively, with Cara Delevingne.
There's something
I don't know.
to it.
Could be something.
I don't know.
Wow. That would be so groundbreaking. That would be sort of her growing up.
Also, isn't the sort of idea that she had this brief relationship with that guy from whatever that band is, Maddie, whatever, and
Maddie Healy.
And he helped her produce, as far as I know, her one kind of interesting song, which is about being the antihero or whatever. I think that song's
great song. I have to say,
the persona that she is speaking from is really interesting. Mm-hmm. And so maybe she's wants to go a little dark, come hang out in Berlin. I believe, if I recall, she did her tour and she did not come to Berlin.
Wow.
That could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I believe she went to Munich.
I was about to say, yep.
I believe she did not stop here because she maybe would not have been welcome. I'm sure they could have scrounged up some people this year, but
yeah. My sister lives in Munich, and it is really just sort of like the more basic Berlin. Like it is they take everyone from Berlin and they're like, take off one eyebrow piercing and put on this startup t-shirt and you can go to Munich.
But they're glowing. Like they're really creepy, right?
True.
They're really, really tan, really glowing. They're always like hanging out by the river, that whatever. And yeah, they're very rich.
Well, I'll say this, and we can close the book on Taylor Swift, but I started out this whole episode being like, my issue with Taylor Swift is that I can't even theorize around her. And here we are, 10, 15 minutes into the episode, and we have thought of some amazing points. We have, sort of like, I think, brought into the fore some interesting elements of her work. And I think after this, I'm going to listen to the album top to bottom, and I'm going to publish my official rankings of the songs on BuzzFeed.com. So look out for that.
Yeah, I think we did a really, really balanced discussion, and I think if anyone were to attack us after this, well, we would have grounds to put them in prison.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And again, as I always say, I like the album Reputation. So if anyone wants to come for me, just know that I often listen to the song Delicate.
Yeah, and
I don't even know that song.
It's really good. You'd like
highly
it.
recommend.
And for some reason,
it's really good.
The song "Mean" speaks to me.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a great song.
It's such a hit. So this has been a really, really balanced discussion, and I think we deserve money for that. Actually.
Yeah, and shout out to the Tortured Poets Department. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
The most truly. If I were like, what is the most grating series of 3 words you could put together? It would be Tortured Poets Department.
Well, and it's apparently what her ex's with the group text thread was called. So it's a call.
Do
we know that, or is that a theory? Who said that?
I don't know. Someone was telling me this last night. I did a show and I found myself, everyone there was a huge Taylor Swift fan, and I was sort of just like, it was that thing where I was like, I'm I found myself in enemy territory, and if I say a word, I'll be drawn and quartered, so I need to be silent.
You know where I was? I was in Washington, D.C., and I was on a little book tour, and I was in mostly coastal elite cities or Chicago, the great American city. But then I was ending in Washington, D.C., and everywhere you went was Taylor Swift. It was also not from any one album. It was like obviously a Taylor Swift Spotify radio, or even worse, I would assume someone's personal My Favorite Taylor Swift tracks, just nonstop, every restaurant, everywhere you were.
DC is actually, I would say, what the city Taylor Swift was made for.
Yes. Wow.
And I mean, do you not agree?
She's from Pennsylvania, no?
She's from Pennsylvania.
Rural Pennsylvania, not that far away from where I'm from, if I may.
Oh. Another reason why you guys would hit it off.
We would hit it off.
No, DC is a perfect encapsulation of her, I think.
Yeah. So when Sam and I went on tour, we went to a few cities, and our audience, it's like a sort of mix of, I don't know, sort of like queer and queer presenting people in their like 20s through 40s. Okay. And it's like, you see some tattoos, you see some piercings, you see some people that are sort of like, work in marketing, but are ashamed of it. And, they love listening to comedy podcasts, whatever. In DC, every single person was like in a suit coming from working in the White House. I've never seen anything like it. Like the most like respectful, applause, laughing exactly 3 ha-ha-has per joke, and then completely like composing themselves.
Well, to be fair, our show that night was at the U.S. House of Representatives, so...
True, yeah. And Jill Biden was in attendance.
Biden was in attendance.
Wait. I'm trying to formulate the joke. What about the Senate guy, the twink?
Oh, the twink that bottomed in the yeah.
Senate twink, yeah.
Yeah, well, see, he's the only person...
the joke I'm making.
That twink, that's the only person that has ever lived out loud in the city of Washington, D.C., look how he was ostracized.
Not okay.
I
love my favorite joke setup is I'm trying to formulate the joke.
That's literally 70% of my life. Okay, should we do our first segment, Sam? What do you think?
I think that would be such a beautiful idea, George.
We like to do a preliminary first segment with every guest called Straight Shooters. And in this segment, we ask you a series of rapid-fire questions to gauge your familiarity with and complicity in straight culture. All you have to do is choose this thing or this other thing. And the one rule is you can't ask any follow-up questions about how the game works. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Lauren. Manifesting a better life or beta testing women to be your wife?
Manifesting a better life.
Okay, Lauren. Putting a playlist on shuffle or getting your face hit in a kerfuffle?
Shuffle.
Catching a matinee or matching with a man who's gay?
Matching with a man who's gay. Well, no, it's difficult. I would say I do like a matinee as well.
Okay, Lauren, Carrie Bradshaw or Terry Bradshaw?
Carrie.
We tell ourselves stories in order to live, or that new song is boring, I wanted it to give?
That new song is boring, I wanted it to give.
Okay, full transparency or hair transplant for me?
Full transparency. These are too easy.
Okay.
I listened to your one with the director just now, and you gave her much better.
Oh, Theta. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, you're catching us on a Friday, and it's Taylor Swift Day, so we've been really busy all day.
Sorry, the critics in the hot seat. Okay.
The critic has entered the chat, y'all. Okay. This itch won't go away, or this bitch is good at ballet.
This bitch is good at ballet.
Okay, Toblerone or hold the phone?
Hold the phone.
Wow. Okay, so we rank each guest's performance on a scale of 0 to 1,000 doves. I would say, generally I would go in a sort of like 700 to 800 direction, but because of your bold criticism of us, I think that actually elevates you to a 950, a clean 950. What do you think, Sam?
I 100% agree.
We haven't been put in our place like that in a while, and it really actually felt correct.
I actually do have to, I mean, a guest to like really be like, no, this isn't good enough is so refreshing.
It's so good.
I do feel that generally, George, I don't know how you feel. I do feel like we are somewhat in our backlash era.
Are you experiencing backlash, or are you?
We are experiencing backlash. Sam, should we talk about the specifics of the backlash, do you think?
I would actually. I'm not opposed to it.
So, Lauren, we had American comedian Kathy Griffin on the podcast, and she told, listen, I, as a sort of basic gay teen, I loved Kathy Griffin. She was appealing to stupid little gay guys that like pop culture. That was me. I was all in. To me, she's always been a white whale. I've always been like, it would be so fun to have her on the podcast. How funny for the two of us to be talking to Kathy Griffin. So she did the podcast. I thought she was very funny. At some point out of nowhere, she went on a full sort of, I would say, rant about how we need to vote blue no matter who, and that if we don't, then potentially we as gay guys would lose our rights. And the problem there, I think, is twofold. A, the idea of voting blue no matter who, amid everything happening in the world right now, amid Joe Biden sending billions of dollars of military aid to Israel, is a complicated statement, to say the least. Mm-hmm. Second being her sort of implication that as two gay men, the only thing we would care about is like gay marriage being repealed and not, innocent people being murdered.
Yeah. Fair. All fair.
So then we do not know this woman at all. Like, her doing this podcast was like exciting for us because we're like, this is like an icon, Kathy Griffin.
Yes.
And so she goes,
and we respect her.
We do respect her. And so we were like, okay, like it was sort of like, let's just try to move on. And people were like,
but why don't you guys edit?
So that's
all the other podcasts edit.
I kind of
I felt like it was so that was Sam's, and sorry, Sam wanted to cut the rant, and I was sort of like, I find it. Maybe I have such a like Joker sense of humor that to me it's literally so funny, and I'm sorry to make light of it, but it's so funny to me for the two of us, two gay guys that literally like we literally had an episode where the straight topic was voting. Like we've made jokes about this sort of like vote blue no matter who sentiment before. Everyone knows our politics. Everyone knows our sense of humor. To me, it's so funny to have Kathy Griffin, like iconic, 63-year-old celebrity, yelling at us to vote blue no matter who. And I was like, our audience is with us. They will also find it really funny from a distance.
It's journalism, kind of like you're giving her, you're interviewing her, letting her hang herself or whatever. Like
yes.
That's like if you were the New York Times, you would publish that as well. But unfortunately, you're the victims of homophobia.
Exactly.
And you just aren't allowed the same standards.
Yeah. I mean, and
true.
George, I think it's so beautiful that you respected our audience that much. I was like, this is a little bit too high level of a joke.
You just don't want to, you just like don't want to deal with it. Okay, I mean, I get it. And listen.
But also, what do you expect from her? Didn't she do that? What was the weird thing she did with like the Trump head that she was wearing? Like what?
But so that was a big part of it, is she was saying like, she did this photo shoot where she was holding Trump's head. And because of that, she lost like basically 6 years of work. She was like put on government lists. I mean, she was explaining all of this to us. And okay, yes, I understand that if with no context, you're like, why is this lady, yelling at my two favorite podcasters? But I don't know. I was like, how fun. Like she was in the center of everything. She literally couldn't work for 6 years because of a photo shoot she did where she held Trump's bloody head. Like that is funny.
I knew. I mean, you can just, Lauren, sometimes I have toxic levels of empathy, and I could just feel our listeners listening to it. Like when I was listening to it, I was like, they're going to be mad at this. And it was like, I was hoping I was wrong, and I was hoping that George's Joker level humor would shine through. But so we've sort of been dealing with people being like so mad at us for like the last 2 weeks in a way that's it's like so. I'm struggling with it.
But don't you feel like it's a bit fake? It's they're going through the motions a bit. I do feel like in the last couple of months, there has been a resurgence of people trying to make Twitter politics happen again.
Yeah.
Like they're trying. They're like, look, we're really mad. This is gonna destroy our society, and like I'm gonna yell at you, and I'm gonna cyberbully you, and it's kind of like. It's a little bit sweet, no? Like
no, I know what you mean. There is something about it that
they lack a new impetus for like talk, like being in public, and so they're like latching on to like 2020 whatever stupid
this
stuff.
Is exactly it. Talk about Taylor Swift fall out of a coconut tree. The yelling, I'm sort of like, we did this, and we like saw how stupid we all looked, and we've like fully unpacked how silly that like we all looked.
No, it's really true. When I think about
confusing.
They were trying to cancel me for being a bad writer. I didn't even.
Lauren,
they were trying to cancel.
Listen, you brought it up, not us.
What happened?
I know, but I'm just like, I've had you. Everybody online was going insane about Lauren.
Well, Lauren, they called you the Renata Adler of looking at your phone a lot.
That's not even bad. That's not even bad.
I don't think that's bad.
Novel about looking at your phone. Obviously,
yeah,
that's a good thing to be.
Why would that's literally like everyone looks at their phone a lot? What? I mean, I guess, would you rather be the Elizabeth Hardwick of, I don't know, writing listicles for BuzzFeed.com? I don't know. It's sort of...
Yeah. It's not, I'm like, you guys are making, like, I don't know. It was really like, people were trying to bring us back to 2016.
Yeah. Well, but it's of course there's a certain beauty to it, of course, because as a longtime reader of yours, you were one of the voices that was publishing sort of similar pieces at that time.
But
is there a part of you that's like
a math error in my pieces, George?
What is the math error?
I believe there was an arithmetic error in the book forum article about me, among other fact-checking foibles that they had there.
That is interesting. Okay.
No, yeah, of course, obviously, but also that I guess my feeling is like, oh, I wish I'd had my period of unearned unanimous praise and like money.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like when I did it, I was like, this person is really famous.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
And they had never had a negative review. I'm like, I have been getting this internet.
Okay.
I'm like, you guys act like you're making me feel bad. I've been doing this since I was 24 years old. I wrote a takedown of Roxane Gay. Do you think you're going to make me like upset? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so Lauren, in your ideal world, I feel like, so do you think you should have, this book that you just published, No Judgment, okay, you think this should have had sort of all positive reviews so that then someone, a spunky young 24-year-old writer could come, for your next book and really take you down?
That would be, good for them. Yeah. I think that it should have been that way? I don't know. I don't like to engage in counterfactuals.
Okay.
But my feeling is like, this again? You like Google
I see what
it.
You're saying.
You know what I mean? Like Google it. Of course, I'm not like upset about it. Like do whatever you want.
No, you don't seem upset at all.
It's funny. It's funny.
Speaking of our backlash era.
Yes, speaking of our backlash era.
Should we get into our topic?
Let's get into our topic because talk about something that's going to have a backlash.
I really feel like we are like, to be completely
We're being
honest,
a little reputation era right now, I think.
It's so reputation era in a way that I'm not sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope we have a delicate on this episode.
Yes.
But the backlash era, I'm not emotionally good at dealing with it. Like, I get very obsessed with what
people are saying about you.
Yeah, and it like is not chill. And but maybe this is exposure therapy, and I hope my reputation era is strong. And talking about Taylor Swift and now our topic, I'm sure I've got to get my armor on, girls. I've got to be stronger than ever before.
I think it's
so
important
excited to hear your opinions about this. Actually.
Yeah, I think it's important to we can't suddenly for the rest of time only be talking about things we read online. But I think it's okay to be like, this is a contained, for this episode and this conversation, we wanna really just here's what happened, here's how we feel, and then we can move on.
Perfect.
So anyway, Lauren, what is the straight topic you've brought with you today, and what do you think makes it straight?
I have brought with me several boyfriends because we are talking about polyamory.
Wow.
Now, it's a bit contentious to say this is straight. Obviously, the queers, as they might say in Boston, the location of the most recent polyamory narrative that we were treated to on the internet, would say the queers pioneered this practice as a response to various oppressive forces in our society. But like all things that you guys pioneer, we take them and ruin them. So that's what we're talking about today.
Wow.
And why is it straight?
Yeah.
Because a bunch of dorks have made it an identity on the internet in order to score points.
I see. So it's become like a competitive, it's become something that forcibly makes you interesting when not much else is there, let's say.
Yes. And I think too, the sort of discourse polyamory that I think we're going to discuss is very managerial.
No, okay, wait. I do agree that it's managerial. I mean, again, the most sort of I think the most compelling argument against this, the kind of 2024 straight coded polyamory that we read about in the pages of the New York Times and the Atlantic, is that it is people that are, it's this way to basically put romantic love into spreadsheets and live with 8 people and have schedules of when you are in bed with whom.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of,
Well, I also think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
I also think there is a way that it is trying to put the normal emotions of monogamy. So, you want to cheat on your husband of 15 years. It's a sort of logic based, it's a logic and reason based calculus about how you're going to live your romantic life, right? So, you're not going to, it's true. You're not going to sleep with the same person for the rest of your life that you met when you were 27. If we may use a sort of straight timeline, you're just not going to do that. But I think in the last 10 or 15 years, there has been a real emphasis on being a good person. You can't, anti-red flag, living healthy, manifesting your best life kind of thing, which means you can't have an affair, right? Mm-hmm. You can't dump your husband because you need to be living with your husband forever. So you have to sort of do this kind of rules-based thing, ethically, A&M or whatever. And then you just keep legislating is my experience and understanding. That you just keep a new situation arises and then you must create more rules, and then a new situation arises and you must create more rules, because there is the resistance.
So it's a less intuitive, it's a less intuitive embodied existence, and it's a more we are calling meetings to modify the Bill of Rights every 2 days or whatever, and we're having house meetings, and it is by consensus, and we are voting. It's basically, what if relationships were voting?
What if relationships were voting? We're having a caucus.
We're having a caucus, yes.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Get it?
No joke formulation necessary.
No,
that one
good.
was ready to go. Lauren, so you said bringing multiple boyfriends to the conversation. Do you participate in polyamory or just a viewer?
I resist the terms, and I don't. Well, I talk about it now. I guess I do talk about it. If the man I am dating tries to use a term, I throw a fit and, and reject it immediately. But I am in an open relationship. If you have read some of my work, this would not be a surprise to you.
Well, I did want to ask, and thank you for teeing me right up for it. I remember I first thought, okay, we got to get her on. Months before your latest book was released, when I read your essay in Harper's about going on the Goop cruise, which was an incredibly fun read. And you sort of offhandedly were like, well, I had two boyfriends. One was straight and one was gay. So obviously I'm going to bring the gay boyfriend to the cruise because he has a sense of irony, which, first of all, perfect way to put that, but also sort of an iconic thing to mention and then never go back to. Just a straight woman being like, anyway, so my gay boyfriend has a sense of irony, so I'm going to bring him to the Goop cruise. Is everyone on board? Great. So basically we get there and it is random sauce. So I want to know I do think it's funny that, I don't know, I think the idea is that we're supposed to be like, Lauren is known for her literary takedowns, when in fact, you should be known for calling your boyfriend gay on the cover story for Harper's.
Wait, I wasn't calling him gay. He's gay. He's gay. He's probably still gay. Like we were saying earlier, I don't shy away from getting into a little bit of a scrape.
Of course.
And I don't know if we've mentioned this, but I live in Berlin, the hotbed of sexual freedom and hedonism.
I thought that was Boston.
And now it is. Yeah, this was was a couple years ago. We sort of paved the way for the Boston polycule that was featured in the New York Times this week. I think that in Berlin, especially in sort of expat, writer, artist, academic, intellectual party people milieu that I am a part of, the queer politics sort of did there was no more queer to go, right? So they had the gay guys in particular sort of had to turn around because they reached the end of the line and they're like, what else can we do?
This is literally perfect. Yeah, Sam and I talk about this all the time. That there's people are so liberated, and specifically gay guys are so liberated, that really the only other way to go is to go full horseshoe theory and date a woman. And we were saying in a previous episode, the most radical thing for us to do, and I'm not even talking about a woman, maybe a sort of more masculine presenting woman or someone who is gender nonconforming. I think the most radical thing Sam and I could do was date Sydney Sweeney. It just go truly date the most porny, straight man's fantasy of what a woman is.
Yeah.
And so it's honestly really inspiring that that's already happening in Berlin.
What you say, I'm on the level of Sydney Sweeney. Thanks very much.
I think you would look, of course. As we've already discussed, you're more of a Taylor Swift, but I think you're certainly on the spectrum.
No, when I was doing this, a couple of my friends were like, but Lauren, you're queer. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, you wear baggy pants. And I was like, what do you mean I wear baggy pants? And they were like, you wear baggy pants. You have two boyfriends. Your boyfriend's gay. I was like, maybe you could say I'm in a queer relationship.
I see.
But I'm not going to go around saying I'm a queer woman, which means something else. And I'm obviously not. And if a man had two girlfriends, you would not call him queer. You would be like, that guy's doing a great job.
Well, he might call himself queer.
Yeah, but these days, my former gay boyfriend did not fall out of the coconut tree. He is a part of the context of everything that came before him. So, this is kind of I'm not aware that this is happening, but I have since done some sociological investigations, and indeed, I was in a spin class, and I met a friend of a friend, and this guy was sort of talking to me about something, and I said, oh, I had this gay boyfriend, and he was like, I'm a gay guy and I have a girlfriend, and I was like, what? What? I've never met another one. So it was sort of common, and I think if we can be serious for a moment, the gay, I don't know how describe this. Let's say the gay sex culture in Berlin is somewhat abusive and alienating, is my understanding. And I think many people have figured out ways to deal with that. Basically
by dating women.
Being like, there's no boyfriend for me here. They're all horrible and like
I see.
Yeah, and historically the relationship between straight women and gay men has been quite strong.
Sure,
and
of course.
Now, if you have a sort of open sex culture where you can like nobody's like expecting you to do missionary or whatever, like you can do also it's not so unusual or strange, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. What you're describing is it's like a sort of a woman that has always identified as straight, later in life being like, you know what, men suck. And then she starts dating a woman. Yeah. You're describing that, but for a gay guy, which I think is so new and radical. Like a gay guy literally being like, ladies, men suck. And then going and dating a
yeah. And the ladies are like, they do suck. And you can kind of like bond about that in a way that is initially quite exciting. And then you realize like, oh, you're also a man though. Which side are you on? And so it does have, let's say, radical potential, or it feels that way, and not unprecedented. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
But the reason I did it, anyway, the craft portion of this conversation is like, I dropped that information in because it's not super relevant to the ostensible topic of my piece, but it was the funniest way to do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a question in terms of the straightness of polyamory. Like, do we feel like if there are broadly speaking, two types of polyamory that are represented in the media, I would say one of them is a sort of like democratized polycule, and the other one is like, I'm in an open relationship with a primary partner and I am, quote unquote, allowed to have other flings. Mm-hmm. Which of those would you say is straighter and which of them would you say is gayer?
The polycule is straighter and the open relationship with flings is gayer, for sure.
I agree. Even though in theory you would think that the polycule was more queer because it's so communal and it's so like Copenhagen.
Yeah, but it's all like, I don't really want to be around like someone like annoying people that you're going out with for some reason,
because what it is, you're not actually in a commune, you're in a startup. Like you are that is what you are in a WeWork, and you are sharing a shared desk. You are in a pod with other people that are on their MacBooks.
Yeah, and the group chat thing and the shared calendar and the weird denial of reality. I don't think like denying reality is particularly gay, right? Like, I think I don't know.
Sure.
Sure.
Well, I think like
this is an interesting point because on the one hand, like
I don't really know if this is true, but I think this is a fruitful topic of conversation.
Yeah. Is denying? This is actually a great.
Well,
okay, this is a great question.
Obviously, a rich tradition for queer people to deny reality, like. Yes. That is like, I'm living my fantasy, blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not rich, but I feel rich, and that's enough. And,
also
whatever.
Just the idea of performance, like the idea that we are at all times performing, the idea that all the world's a stage, all of that is very much like denying basic reality.
Yeah, famous LGBTQ icon, Shakespeare said that.
Exactly.
But is it not creating reality? I don't understand this distinction between the performance and reality. I don't think that there is necessarily a legitimate distinction, right? Like if you spend half your time performing, that's who you are. Mm-hmm. That's your life.
And of course, that's the real meaning of performativity, is that for something to be a performance doesn't mean that it's fake. It just means that it is being performed and thus being made.
Yes. But I don't think that the straight polycule, they would be a queer polycule, because I assume there's some queer relationships happening in there. That is not performing. And maybe it's just that the performance is bad.
Right? You're in a black box theater.
Yeah.
It's your friend's friend. You're going in there to support. And at the end, you're like, well, they work together really well.
Yeah. And you're like,
well, it is that thing where it's like
living their dream,
It took a lot of emails to get here. Like, you have to admit, this was like, many people were called in, and organizationally, this was difficult. Other than that, is it inspired? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I think if we're going back to denying reality, I think if you were to argue that denying reality is straight, and not to get political, but like the idea of straight denial of reality is sort of like denying, for example, denying that inequality exists, denying that there are problems in the world and going about your day. That is a straight version of denying reality. It's not like putting on a fun outfit. It's being like, I'm composting.
Yeah, well, now I guess you could sort of, let's historicize this. So you could say that straight monogamy was denying reality, like this fake idea that you were going to like possess each other for all time, and you would never step out or whatever. You would never want, to the extent that it would ruin your life, to do something besides monogamy. Now they've sort of pendulum swing too far in the other direction, which is like, I'm going to deny the fact that this is deeply weird and fucked up, that I'm in an 8-person polycule and I hate these people, and I watch my like primary partner who I'm in love with like have sex with some other person, and they text me afterwards and they're like, LOL, got cream pied, or whatever they do, and it's like cutesy stupid porn, like desexualized porn language that they use. And it's also sort of denying reality, because they're like, I went to therapy for several, I don't have a problem with that. I'm really happy for her, actually. And I think among many poly people, there is a sort of like, they feel distraught that they're jealous, or they're distraught that they have like, they don't like that their primary partner is falling in love with someone else. Yeah. And they're like, I need to get rid of this because it isn't enlightened. It isn't, it's like patriarchal or whatever, like blah, 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 blah. And you're like, no, that's a very obviously that's how you feel. And that doesn't mean you need to act on it such that you like ruin your life, but like you shouldn't deny the fact that you're obviously jealous about that, right?
Yeah. So maybe what like compulsory heteromonogamy and hedonistic queer polycules have in common is that they aspire to this sort of like simplified happiness. Like it's like in the same way that you watch, Far From Heaven or something, and it is this like 50s version of a happy household and everyone has to conform in a weird like funhouse mirror way. The polycule article is people every day waking up and looking in the mirror and being like, I'm happy. Like this is exactly, I finally found a way to be happy. And maybe the way out of both of those things is to sort of like accept that at any given time you can feel a variety of feelings, and you can feel jealousy and you can feel bitterness, and that is all part of a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and is it healthy to discuss it all? Like we can.
This is an interesting question.
And then we can talk about the processing element, which does also come from like queer, like Berkeley culture. But Sam was going to make a point first.
Well, I guess I was going to ask a different question. George, you made the joke earlier about like it's very tech startup, but honestly, and maybe it's just geographic, there is a link between straight poly and people that work in tech.
Yes,
and like
totally.
I want to understand why.
Well, it's Burning Man. It's literally
Burning Man.
It's like sort of like commodified club culture, commodified like back to nature ideology. It is like whole earth catalog. It is
it's also sort of like efficiency culture too. It's like being like, I can do this perfectly. Like all of my wants can be met, and they can be met on time, and I'll reach like a higher plane of productivity.
Yes, and I'll get all of the bad, unproductive emotions out by like working through this. But it's also about an investment mindset, which is like, if I can only get over these hangups I have, then I will achieve sexual, emotional nirvana, and I can continue to be productive like in my like work life, or I can retire early, because they all also want to retire early and become millionaires, right? Yeah. So we can retire early in our poly house and blah, 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 blah.
I've got it. Okay, this is the reality thing. You're not trying to ignore reality. You're trying to escape reality. You think there's a way to get out if you can just do everything right. But the truth is there's no escaping. And so it's better to like, get used to feeling jealous, get used to being late, get used to being unproductive some days and productive other days.
I mean, are we being so like pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Like, I'm like, are we now suddenly being conservative and telling people they're not allowed to imagine new ways of being with one another?
I just mean, I don't even mean don't be poly. I mean like don't be poly as an as an escape from like what is reality. Like don't be poly as an escape from unproductivity or lack of don't be poly as an escape of jealousy and whatever.
Yeah, what it means to like be a human in the world. Like you can't like hack your way out of it. But can I ask you guys what are your orientations?
We're both gay.
Orientations. You're gay.
We're both in open relationships.
We're openistas.
We're both in, I would say, long-term open relationships.
But it's, and like the question of like a third, is sort of like, I feel like there's so many gay couples that like start open and whatever, and then like suddenly it's like, and that's our boyfriend, and I'm sort of like, go off, queen. There's a difference too where it's not like, and I am poly and I have been, and it's just sort of like there's a like, we are dating and now we're dating him too, and in a way that I appreciate, which is like the casualness, and maybe like queer people, maybe that's a privilege of being gay, is that you get to be more casual about it, whereas if you're like straight, you don't get to.
I do think that's a big part of it, is like, and it sort of sucks that for the poly New York Times people, that they become these punchlines when in fact they are just trying to have a certain level of freedom that perhaps if you are already queer, and if you are already embedded in communities where like different romantic practices are at play, you don't feel the need to constantly justify your actions and put them in a sort of moral framework.
And I think too, with poly stuff in particular, there is a kind of evangelical approach or an evangelical impulse that these people have, because especially poly stuff, you need more people to do it so that you can fuck more people, right? Like it's actually a sort of it's a sort of like a very like
it's an MLM.
It's an MLM. So you need people to participate in it because first of all, you don't want people to be like, you're a freak, get away from me. And also you don't want people to, you want more people who are like kind of interested in it so that you can like have relationships with them in the way that you want to, because it can be alienating. I don't find it particularly alienating. I was just going to make a joke, which is that if you were to, as two gay guys, pick up a third who was a woman, I do believe it would not be casual, and you would indeed have all sorts of issues from experience talking about it. But there is also another part of it that is interesting to me, which is the talking and the intimacy that creates. And I think maybe some of it is about like wanting more intimacy, wanting to know people deeper, and wanting to know about your partner things that would ordinarily be kept private, right? So if I have like a really huge crush on somebody, and then I talk to my boyfriend about it, which is not to say I do that. I don't really do that. But if I do that, then he kind of like has one over on the crush because he, we have a relationship, and he sort of talks to me about things that I can't talk to that guy about. So, so the talking element, I think, is sort of underrepresented in the like let's like make fun of the poly people online, because I agree with you guys, like there is something beautiful about it or like interesting about it.
Totally. The crush thing is really fascinating because this really struck me when I was watching Couples Therapy, that show with Porna.
God, I love that show.
I mean, of course. So there is a couple, and one of them says, I told her I have a new crush. And the complaint was that her girlfriend was not sort of excited enough about her new crush. Like, it's like everything needs to be affirmed so much that I am telling my boyfriend I have a new crush. And not only do I expect him to, sort of be okay with that conversation, quote unquote, but I also want him to affirm it and yes and it and be like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. That must be so exciting that you have a new crush. Tell me about it and we'll talk about it together.
I feel like it's not me. I'm like, yeah. If my boyfriend is like, yeah, I think that guy's great, you should go out with him. I'm like, don't say that.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know. You should watch out for that guy. You don't know. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's a certain amount of the open relationship, which is like, I want to maintain some part of myself and I want to like be my own person and I want my freedom. And I don't want you to participate in it, like quit stealing my stuff.
That's a really good point. It's almost like, the point of an open relationship, I guess, would be, or part of the point would be to be more free. But then if you are discussing every little thing with your partner, then in fact, it's almost like you are even more tied in a sort of heteropatriarchal way. You're even more tied to your primary partner and you like are losing a sense of like independence and privacy rather than gaining.
Yeah, and it creates all these like other, I don't know, I'm a sort of like neurotic, anxious person. And like, I'm like, when do I have to tell you that I'm going on a date? Like, do I have to tell you now? Like, should I disclose this text message? Like, it creates all this like bullshit that you think about where you're like, this was supposed to be fun. Like, this was supposed to be not liberated, but like free. Yeah, exactly. Like, like it was supposed to be easier. And now it's because of this impetus to validate everyone's feelings as opposed to an impetus to like deal with your own feelings on your own time. It creates like more stress in some ways.
I mean, every relationship you do need like some privacy. Like you need a little bit of privacy in the relationship, and it's weird to think that you don't. I'm like obsessed with having a little bit of space to myself, and like honey, I like to perform a bit, and so if you're seeing me at my worst all the time, like if you see me at 3 p.m. every Tuesday when I'm miserable, then you're not going to find me very hot. So I'm like, don't look at me now. Like let me be private, and let me be cranky, and then Friday night you can see me in all my wonder and glory.
That's right. You know what I think actually would really help the situation is if Taylor Swift joined a polycule for approximately 6 months and then wrote an album about that.
Yes. That's really good.
That's really good. Well,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I really do think that's the last frontier.
I mean, in our previously mentioned Backlash episode with Kathy Griffin, we actually told Kathy Griffin that in trying to pivot to a joke, we told Kathy Griffin that Taylor Swift should be in a polycule with Joe and Jill Biden. And I feel that she was just sort of like, what?
She didn't get it? Like Kathy Griffin didn't respond to that?
Well, this is part of our many efforts, and I just want to make it clear we adore Kathy Griffin. We are so honored she came on, and I genuinely have so much respect for her as a comic. But it was just very funny that we kept trying to pivot when she would say like, go into the vote blue no matter who stuff, we would just try to very kindly pivot to a joke. And so she was like, I think Taylor Swift, if she endorsed Joe Biden, that would really like help us out. And we were like, it would be really funny if she was in a throuple with Joe Biden and Jill Biden.
But she didn't find that funny.
I think she got it. I think she got it.
But I also think she felt that it was a joke and was sort of like, well, I'm not kidding. Let's, and it was sort of like, right.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the poly discussion is like so, in my radical empathy complex, because I do feel like for the, quote unquote, like heterosexual people that are in poly situations, I could see why they'd want to like, defend it and be, and like have people have respect for it because it's so maligned, but in their community, but it is there's a self-seriousness to it that's unfortunately going to be a little laughable sometimes.
Of course, and also guess what? Like the people that. It's also a self-selecting group of people that agree to be in a New York Times feature. I think there are probably, there are people living in polycules that are just like, honestly reading that article and being like, oh God, they're making us look bad. It's like when I, turn on my TV and see all these gay guys. No, I'm kidding.
But no, I totally know.
It's a self-selecting group.
Yeah, I don't know though. I suggested polyamory for the topic, but I was like, we could do more niche and do field, which straight people also love.
Field is a really tough one. Yeah,
Field, the sex app for smart people.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. I do find that a lot of the people on it, I don't really use it anymore, but like when you look at it, it's a lot of branding. Like it's a lot of like self-branding as like what kind of poly you are, and the sort of like lower and low, sort of subgenre of poly that you can be, and like what are your weird rules and stuff. And I don't know. It's just the like.
That was what was embarrassing about the New York Times article too. It was all the self-branding of like, he is jock football player, but I am witch. Crystal lady.
I know. Do people really want to be like that? Like, do they really want to be like trapped in that?
I think about this all the time.
People are looking for meaning, and everything is so uncertain and nebulous that I do think there's a comfort you can take in being like, I am cheerleader.
But doesn't meaning come from the constantly cycling uncertainty and the way that you respond? Meaning is not fixed. I don't know. What do you mean?
I feel I mean, people just want to have control. I think more than meaning. I think people want to have control, and that's like it's sort of like knowing like what your favorite movie is. Like it's like people like to be like, I know what my favorite movie is, therefore I know who I am. And it's like,
yes. It's also just like identity is so complex that it's so much easier, rather than finding out fundamentally what kind of person you are or something. Mm-hmm. It's easier to be like, I am a Gryffindor.
Should we do our final segment?
Yeah. Lauren, any final thoughts on polyamory?
I don't have any final thoughts. It's not bad or good. I think I will say, we're like judgy. But it would, even though we all sort of do it in some way.
Well, of course. The thing I will say, the thing that I judge people for is being an obviously doomed monogamous relationship.
Yes, totally.
That's what and sort of being like, I just can't do it. This is the way that I am. And it's like, no, you're not. And there is something like really like moving and nice about the people who are like, I'm going to do this differently, even if they do a bad job of it, right?
I completely agree. And I think I don't want anyone to take away from this that we are, I don't know, passing moral judgment on people who are in polycules. If anything, it's sort of like passing aesthetic judgment. Exactly.
There needs to be a different word for it, because it's not that I'm like opposed to. It's like a type of person. It's almost like how like there's like people who smoke weed and then there's stoner culture. Like, like it's not that I care. Like I'm down for different relationship styles. It's just like, be normal about it. Be chill.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's literally how I feel about Taylor Swift.
Literally.
I was gonna say it's just how you guys feel about Taylor Swift. It's the same. They're not hurting you.
Yeah.
It's fine if they do that. But if any of them wanted to get woken up and come over and like listen to Lana Del Rey, like you would welcome them. You would help them, right?
Welcome with open arms. Our final segment is called Shoutouts. And in this segment, we do pay homage to the grand straight tradition of the radio shoutout, and just shout out to anything that we are enjoying at all. So imagine it's 2001, you're at TRL shouting out to your squad back home, but about anything that you are currently enjoying. George, off the top of your head, do you have one?
Part of this tradition is that we think of them on the spot, just like we would if we were put on the spot on the radio. I can do one. It's not going to be super entertaining, but it is going to be earnest and something I genuinely recommend. Okay. So I can go.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. What's up, freaks and losers out there? I want to give a shout out to my friend David's Substack. It's called thearcades.substack.com. Now, okay, here's the thing. This is not one of he's not some journalist railing about cancel culture. I'll tell you that. It is a Substack where each week you get a curated list of things that are on auction. I'm talking furniture, design items, whatever, that he has looked through and curated for you. And I have found some of them, we're talking a giant glass table with huge legs. We are talking a sort of like, I'm looking at it now, silver leaf shelf brackets that are currently going for, nope, that link is broken. And we are talking about, there was one time a life-size sort of sculptural like set piece of Sigourney Weaver from the Alien movie that they were like getting rid of in some sort of like on-set items auction that they were doing or whatever. And so this is a big part of his life. So he looks at auctions a lot. And, you know, rather than seeing all the cacophony of all the different live auctioneers and all those websites, you just get one email a week, and it shows you truly some of the most there's a sculpture of a banana, and when it's peeled, it looks like a vulva inside. And that is made of, I think, like pure, hold on, let me find it. All right. It's ivory. So you can't import it. So it is an ivory banana sculpture that has sort of flies that are colored around it, and then it is open, and then you get a sort of vaginal inside. Anyway, thearcades.substack.com.
So you're looking for a girlfriend, is what we're hearing.
Yeah. I'm really drawn to this vaginal sculpture.
I don't know.
That was beautiful.
All right, Sam.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. What is up, thoughtful thinkers around the globe? I would like to give a shout out to the new Chappell Rowan song, Good Luck Babe. So, and this is a mixed, complicated conversation because we are at a point where Chappell Rowan is reaching a larger stage. She is growing rapidly. And, you know, I've been standing, I've been, saying, I love her. This new song is incredible, and I'm saying, okay, now I'm getting a little bit scared. We are at sort of what I call Lizzo's pass, where she can either go in a cool direction and be cool forever, or in a not cool direction and be a shameful part of my past that I was a stan. And so I am just so curious. Right now, all signs point to the right direction, and she will be cool forever, but I have been proven wrong many times before, and I love watching someone rise. I love right now I'm obsessed with her, and I keep expecting to enter my own backlash era, and it just keeps not happening. You want someone to be a fluke, and then you're like, no, she's really got the goods. And so Chappell, I say shout out to you. You've got the goods. Good Luck Babe is such a hit, and you're at Lizzo's pass. Make the right choice. It's left or right, and you have all the power to make the right choice. I love you, baby. Woo!
Wow. Lizzo's pass, that's going to be big.
It's really good.
I was thinking,
good.
I mean, there was a point. I mean, people forget Lizzo was once the pied a terre of Brooklyn.
So I want to
where it was
Lauren.
Wait, Lizzo was?
So Lauren, the context there is that I met a guy that was trying to say creme de la creme and accidentally said pied a terre, and so now whenever something is sort of the creme de la creme of something, we say it's the pied a terre of something.
It makes sense. Yeah, good.
But yeah, there was a point where Lizzo was like, everyone was like, she's so cool, she's so amazing, she's awesome, like the mean gay guys that like live in New York.
Yes, I mean, she was like cool, and she was endorsed by Prince, and she was from Minnesota, and like played the flute.
And she was playing the flute, and then she abused her employees.
That's right.
Yeah, Lizzo's pass.
All right.
Okay, all right, Lauren.
Should I what's up haters?
Yes.
What's up haters? I was going to do some object, but you guys both recommended things from culture, so I'm also going to shout out an artist. I purchased a risograph print from this week. Her name is Moira Barrett. I was walking down the street living my local community lifestyle here in Berlin, and I went into a gallery and I saw this great print show featuring works by Moira Barrett, and I bought a print from her, and it is a picture of a sort of nameplate on an apartment building with little buttons. And what I like about this print that I bought is it could have gone terribly wrong. It could have been really twee, but she is incisive enough and smart enough to have labeled these nameplates in a funny way. And I am going to read the nameplates that you can theoretically buzz in this picture. Okay.
Perfect.
So it's just to summarize again, it is an apartment nameplate with a buzzer. So you can buzz indulgent father figure, congenital naysayer, plain-spoken peer, self-effacing acolyte, unbothered enabler, or clairvoyant confidant. Like I said,
Wow.
it could have been twee and stupid, but it's actually pretty smart. So shout out to Moira. Great work. I'm very happy, and I'm excited to frame this and put it on my wall.
Wow. And you know, I'll tell you one thing. You won't find that on Wikipedia. So eat dick, book forum.
No, we love book forum. It's a very
we love book forum.
Magazine.
We here at StraightioLab love book forum.
I actually articles
do
for book
love
forum back in my day.
I love book forum, and they're still getting lips a flapping all these years later. So welcome back.
Welcome back. I love being a tri-coastal book forum based podcast.
Me too. And we'll see you in Berlin. By the way, last question, Lauren, Germany, gay or straight?
Oh, it's deeply closeted, surely.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, sounds hot to me. I'm coming.
All right. Yeah. Lauren, thanks so much for doing the pod.
Thank you, guys.
Lauren's new book is called No Judgment. Lauren's novel is called Fake Accounts. Anything else you would like to promote? Any upcoming television or film projects?
No more projects. We're in repose currently.
Okay, cool.
Yes. We're in training. Let's say.
Beautiful.
Right.
Well, thanks for doing the pod.
All right. Thanks for doing the pod.
Bye.